cable. Keep battery low. We made it. Plug in. This is absolutely brilliant.
Well, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. I say good evening. It could be anywhere in the world where you are watching. My name is Martyn Leaf from the EV News Daily podcast. I'm joined by my monthly partner in crime these days, Nick Ramo from the EV Nick channel. Evening, Nick. How you doing?
I'm all right. Good. I'm good, Martin. How are you?
Very well. Tonight's guest is someone that you were really keen to get on, weren't you?
Yeah, well, mainly because he's a good friend of mine, and mainly because he does the adventures that we all dream of doing in electric cars, but none of us are brave enough to do ourselves.
Yeah, but I've got some good friends I'd like on the podcast, but we are picking the 12 key people in the EV world and renewables and energy world in 2021. And you made a pretty good pitch for Chris to be one of the 12. So why don't you introduce him?
Well, we've got my good friend and adventurer, Chris Ramsey, and I call him a good friend because he's about to probably be one of the most famous electric car adventurers known on this planet. He started off doing the Mongolian Rally, and now this guy is going to drive from one pole to another. Chris Ramsey, how are you today, sir?
Evening, Nick. Evening. Good to be on. I'm having a great evening. I'm here. Good, looking forward to chat to you guys. Obviously, You're both good friends, mine. I consider you a good friend as well.
Yes,
so, Nick, we're good friends until we go on our Forza racing nights, but we'll leave that for another time. But yeah, no, it's great to be on and having a chat with you guys.
So this evening, we're going to talk about your next expedition, which you have kept so close to your chest. For a while, you've not said anything. Then you've said, I've got something in the works, but I don't want to jinx it, so I'm just not going to talk about it. And then eventually you're able to say, how long has this trip been in the planning stage, and how comes you can announce it now?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're quite right. I mean, it started with this. I mean, the map that you see behind me is actually on my wall. This is currently on green screen, but that is actually my bedroom wall. And the inspiration for all my adventures kind of come from just staring at that map. And so Pole to Pole kind of came about not long after the Mongol Rally, and of kind of looking at the next thing that I can do to follow on the educational message around electric vehicles and dispelling the myths. So really, in a nutshell, it's been in the planning for just shy of 4 years, and it's nearly been announced prior to COVID, because quite happy to say we were going to be announcing prior to them, but obviously COVID came and that put a lot of dampener on the works for everybody. And obviously this expedition, doing this kind of stuff, is nowhere near important than people's safety and saving lives. So no complaints in any way, shape or form on that. So, but we kind of said, right, okay, what do we do now? We kind of go back to the drawing board, and it allowed us to, look at other partners, look at new things that we can do, and expand on what we were going to be doing as part of Pole to Pole, the educational message, working with governments and NGOs. And then, we got to this year and thought, right, now it's time where things are starting to come out of COVID, and businesses are starting to eventually look at sponsoring, because that's obviously a big part of how we're managing to do this. So we thought, right, time's right to kind of let people know what we're doing, let my followers know what I'm up to next, because I get asked that basically on a weekly basis. And put it out there and just let people know that, late 2022, we're going to be looking to go Pole to Pole. And I will expand a little bit there and to say that Pole to Pole, it's the South Pole to magnetic North Pole, rather than the actual pole, North Pole, because that is a bit of a stretch at the moment, and especially because of thinning sea ice.
What's the difference?
So North Pole is the true pole, is the true North Pole. Magnetic North is a shifting pole, and it's not the true pole essentially, and it is in a different location. And interestingly, every year it's shifting further and further towards Siberia, away from Canada. So, and the difference with that is it's closer than the North Pole as well.
Yeah, and obviously what also Martyn's forgetting is you can't go to the North Pole. That's where Santa lives. It's protected by a barrier that only Santa can enter.
Of course, that's why. That's the real reason why.
Yeah.
I'm glad Chris.
I think we would have got a permit to go there. I think he would have been.
Well, yeah, probably. So you're actually going from the south to the north. Is there an actual reason to start the south to go to the north, or is it just what you decided?
It's basically, it's the time, effectively the timing. So we're looking to set off, like I say, late 2022, maybe start of January 2023. And at that time, the summer period is in Antarctica. And from there, we're then traveling through South America, into North America, into Canada, and then into the magnetic north from there. So it's just a better place to start, essentially. And essentially, when we get further into Antarctica, the time period that will be there will be about 4 months, end of April, early May. The sea ice conditions in the Arctic should still be good enough for us to reach magnetic north. It's getting sketchy around about that time.
Wow. And if people want to get questions in, you can do that now in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or you can tweet us as well. I know we're streaming this on Twitter as well. If you want to ask Chris anything, because people are going to have a ton of questions. Something that I always, say when I talk about, EV on my podcast, I want EVs coming out in 2023. I'm like, the batteries are ready, everything. Like, why can't they do it now? But I mean, Chris, you've traveled around the world with an EV. Just what's stopping you going this weekend? Come on, man.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, it's everything I do. I mean, at the end of the day, some of the projects I do, I can go tomorrow. Great, but obviously, when you're going to places like Antarctica and the Arctic, the reality of that is we've got to be careful and sensitive with the environments that we're going into, because obviously the whole point of this expedition is not to taint the environments we go into and not to leave any destruction behind. So we're not taking any heavy equipment or machinery in there other than the vehicle, of course. But we're not taking any excessive vehicle machinery in there. We're not leaving any charging type products behind. We take everything that goes in, comes out. And we've just got to be sensitive with that. And that takes a lot of planning, especially getting into Antarctica. That takes a lot of permits, safety. We have to have a support vehicle. We need to potentially have helicopters on standby in case we get trapped, whatever. Falling through crevices. There's so much planning to do. The team have to go through a bunch of training as well. Survival training and such like. So I'm looking forward to swimming in the ice water.
So it's worth mentioning that obviously this is a large operation. It's not something that one of us could just turn around tomorrow and go, I'm going to drive to Antarctica. It's obviously a lot of planning. So obviously it doesn't come cheap having helicopters on standby and support team. So I'm presuming you have a wealth of sponsors behind this. Or
we have, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we do have
big,
some
big
sponsors. Yeah.
And is there still room for sponsors there, or are they all filled up at the moment?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, and that's to say pre-COVID, we had a number of the sponsorship and partners in place. Obviously, when COVID hit, a lot of those guys had to pull out, which is understandable because that saves jobs rather than paying for me to go and do this expedition. And from that perspective, we're now in a position where we have some of the partners on board, and we will be announcing some partners as we go. And we are still looking for partners as well. And the things around accommodation, as we travel through the Americas, and we're looking at people like for tech that we want to integrate within the vehicle, for air quality, such things like that. So there are still partnership opportunities if there's any organizations out there wanting to get in touch. But yeah, it's not cheap. If you were to drive from the South America to the tip of North America, not bad. You can do that for probably about the same budget as what I did the Mongol Rally for. As soon as you go into the Antarctic or the Antarctica, your budget quadruples, goes into the ridiculous amount. So.
we're getting some questions coming in, the first few ones about charging. I mean, it seems to me that you're starting in Antarctica, going up through the Americas, and then ending up in the Arctic. So, very hard, not so hard. Oh, quite nice. A bit harder, really hard.
Yeah.
So, the beginning and the end, awful. Middle bits, okay. So how do you charge, those two questions, when you are at the South Pole?
Yeah. So that, just to add as well, obviously it's like the Mongol Rally. When we finished the Mongol Rally, we had to drive home, and that always gets forgotten about. So with the South Pole, to get to the South Pole, we've got to drive there first. So we're going to have to drive there to then drive back from the South Pole. And likewise, when we get to Antarctica, we've got to get to magnetic North Pole, and we've got to drive back again from there. So, but in terms of charging, this is where we've coming up with some really cool solutions. And this is unfortunately one of those ones where we will be announcing in the coming months. But I can say that we're effectively turning our campsite into a mini microgrid. So the vehicle, when we're going into Antarctica, obviously the battery is going to have an impact on the range. We're looking at some solutions to insulate the battery, essentially to retain some of the heat. So when we do stop, some of the heat retains in the battery. The vehicles or expedition vehicles are housed then inside tents. So when the 24-hour sunlight, when it hits the tent, it retains heat within there. So helps the car stay warm, which is great for us, helps the battery stay a bit warmer. But from a charging perspective, because we have 24 hours of sunlight, we can look at solar solutions, flexible solar that can be integrated within tents, equipment. We're looking at portable wind turbine solution, which again we will release information around that as we go along. But portable wind solution as well that we can tow behind the vehicle, which is going to be a stripped down weighted version of an existing turbine that operates within Antarctica. So it's coming up with ingenious solutions that are effectively already out there and putting them into this environment to really test what they're capable of. But yeah, imagine us traveling a little traveling microgrid, because range-wise, we're going to be probably driving no more than 30 mile an hour because of the terrain. And because of the terrain and how tough going it's going to be in the Antarctic expanse, we could be covering no more than 50 miles some days. 100 miles may be a good, but we're really looking at probably 30 to 50 miles on a good day. So it's not as difficult. I always say this, it's not as difficult what people think it's going to be, because we're not going to be using as much battery as what people think we might, and we're not going to max out the battery, zero charge left in it, and then have to fully charge it. It's little stops each day.
So yeah, I mean, one of the things that people seem to forget is to get to the North or the South Pole, whichever one you're going to go to, you're going to need double the range from your last charge point just to get back to the charger that you got, you started at. So even when you finish the expedition at the North Pole, you still need the range to pull your car back. Now, Mark asked a nice question here, which is one I was going to ask, and that is, are all the support vehicles going to be electric vehicles, or is it just the car that you're in?
So the answer is yes and no, because in Antarctica and the Arctic, the support vehicle is being provided by our Arctic expedition partner, which is Arctic Trucks. Now, unfortunately, because of the education that the companies operating these regions and the authorities operating these regions, the education message they know about electric vehicles is not a good one at the moment. So that vehicle has to be a combustion vehicle. That's the reason why one of the reasons premise for getting the license. But the great thing about Arctic Trucks is that what they're looking to do is from this expedition is then to go to the authorities and kind of say, look, this has demonstrated EV technology. We're going to integrate EV technology into our expedition fleet, whether it be initially hybridization or going to full electric. So then the vehicles in Antarctica and in the Arctic that are operating there can start to become zero emissions. Therefore, they're not tainting the very environment they're there to research and protect. But when we go into South America and North America and Edmonton in Canada, before we leave there, the car that follows us, which will have a videographer and 2 support people with me, they will be in an EV. So
obviously you're going to have
85% of the trip is going to be pure EV.
Yeah, and obviously as Scott said, the helicopter's going to be electric, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know. The great thing about when I mentioned the helicopter from that perspective, that is literally it's what everybody has on standby.
It's one of the main things you have to have. Yeah, the helicopter's not going to be following you as a support vehicle. It's going to be on standby for, you've had a serious injury and you need to be airlifted to hospital, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things we're doing as part of the expedition, and not just the expedition itself, so starting from essentially today, every operation that we do, because obviously the vehicle, when we get hold of that vehicle, it's going to be modified by Arctic Trucks in Iceland to become Arctic ready. All those operations, all those movements, and every flight or every travel that me and my team do, if I can't or they can't do it by electric vehicle, is because we're crossing water, and yes, we need to use a plane. So everything that we do is going to be then offset, and we're looking to work with partners and NGOs to put in place programs that basically not just offset the emissions we've exposed on the expedition, but going forward year after year after year after year after year. So it's not just we've offset some emissions for this project, aren't we clean and green? It's not that. It's basically legacy projects that are basically going to continue to offset the emissions every year.
And what vehicle did you just say it was then?
Yeah, I said the vehicle that we're going to be using. I didn't actually say the vehicle. And I guess, I know that's going to be a question that people will pop up. It's the question that everybody wants to know. And I will say at the moment, we're still got a couple of conversations going on with and with a couple of manufacturers, some very exciting vehicles. And I've just seen that pop up. And well, at the end of the day, it's a couple of exciting manufacturers. So from that perspective, it's going to also be a thing where we may not necessarily announce the vehicle manufacturer straight away. We're currently looking at that because at the end of the day, there is going to be, obviously, once the modification's done, there's going to be a launch around the vehicle. When we take a standard off-the-shelf vehicle and turn it into an Arctic vehicle, it's going to change the appearance and look at that vehicle a bit. So there will be a launch around that. So we may launch first. We may tell people what the vehicle is, or we may not tell them until we actually have modified it. Still, there's a lot of things still to be done.
Yeah, I guess, in just the assumptions I was making about like an adventure, I just kind of thought that, you'd be dropped into the start point and then you would do the adventure, and then some sort of, I don't know, like Tony Stark, you would then kind of just like jet out of the place. Like, so you'd be like picked up by a helicopter and then you come back to the nice warmth of your house. But clearly that's not how it works. No. At what point, either heading to the start or, when you start the
way around who that charging partner might be, Chris, if I'm possibly grabbing any hints, maybe.
We can't wait to find.
I don't possibly know what you're talking about.
Oh, we can't wait. We can't wait to find out. And then all of that infrastructure that you have in Antarctica for your self-generation of that energy, of course, you're then going to be coming up through a bunch of places where it becomes easier. Do you then leave that behind and pick up new gear when you get to the Arctic, or does that all come with you?
All come with us at the moment.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah. Again, it's all about minimizing the impact that we do, because obviously, yes, we're traveling zero emissions, and I don't want that to be we're going zero emissions. So if we do other things and we generate a bit of emissions, we can offset that. I don't want it to be, that's not what it's about. If we have to use any form of fossil fuel in terms of like a plane to transport logistics wise some equipment for us, then it'll be done the very minimal possible. And at the end of the day, we're in a reality situation where you can't get around some of these situations just yet. But by working with the partners we're building legacy programs with them to try and educate them to eventually become a non-fossil fuel burning industry. So but we'll take the equipment with us because at the end of the day, we're going through countries where charging is not an issue. And that's the thing, is saying to people is this isn't about whether we will make it or whether we can make it. We will do it. The technology, whichever vehicle we're in, will be able to do it. It's as we travel through, like South America, we'll be stopping at renewable energy sites and showing the world how the world is now powering itself and how countries have evolved into 100% renewable, like Costa Rica, for example. and the projects going on in Chile. So it's more about showcasing what's going on and what the sustainable lifestyles people are having in South America and North America.
So does that mean the route that you'll pick won't necessarily be the shortest point A to B, but rather you would pick a route that you can choose to highlight things along the way, even if it takes slightly longer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, I mean, from my perspective, the expedition is going to take around about 4 months. And the competitive nature, I mean, Nick knows how competitive I am, and I get frustrated when things don't go my way. So when I was on the Mongol Rally, for example, I had a tight deadline. We wanted to get to the finishing line and get a picture on the big rally podium, and we were in Budapest. And I'm like, right, we've got here, we've stayed overnight. Right, let's go, stay on schedule. And my wife's like, no, stop, take a second, let's just enjoy being here. It's a lovely city. We can always get back on the road. We can always get going again. There's rapid charges, etc., etc. Just enjoy the adventure as much as, wanting to complete it. So she throttled me back a bit. And that's what this expedition is about. It's about taking our time. It's going to conservation projects, whether they're off route or en route. We will go to conservation projects, schools, NGOs, and basically go to see what they're doing. Not necessarily go and tell them that, hey, electric vehicles, we know about electric vehicles and charging, listen to us. It's going and seeing what they're doing and and showcasing what these guys are doing. I mean, for example, as an electrician in Costa Rica, in the area where we're going, there's only 2 chargers in his house and in his electrical office. So we're reaching out to see if we can go and see him, for example. So it's about showcasing what they're doing in that country to learn lessons from them.
Yeah, and I can assure you, Martyn, I have raced on a game called Forza with Chris on the Xbox, and I can tell you now that he is definitely going to take his time on this expedition, and will use any stops and excuses he can for why he's not done this expedition in the fastest possible time. So don't worry about that. He will take his time. Regarding taking your time, how long have you set for this trip? How long do you think it's going to take you?
So I've set aside about 4 months. So, and in terms of that, I mean, to emphasize the fact that it is essentially taking our time to kind of and to showcase a lot of the projects that are going on in the countries. We've focused on like 5-day stops or 4-day stops in Santiago, in Mexico City, in Silicon Valley, in Vancouver and Portland and places like that. So this is very much of some days just pounding out the miles, which is what I love. I can drive and drive and drive all day long. I don't care. But it's about also taking that time out to showcase what's going on in the world, what's showing people how we're transitioning to a life after oil.
So you obviously you mentioned that it's going to take about 3 or 4 months. The last time you went to the Mongolian Rally, your wife Julie came with you on that trip.
Yeah.
Is she coming on the strip? Is she coming pole to pole?
It's something that's still to be decided who the co-driver is going to be. There's a lot of decisions that have been pushed to near the end of the year because as we discussed earlier on, we're still talking to some partners about the project and still looking to talk to some new partners. So a lot of decisions like that have just been pushed to the end of the year. Like I said, we are filming a documentary. So things like where people are asking, well, where's that going to be? Is it going to be on Netflix or YouTube, or Netflix or Amazon or BBC or whatever? So again, another decision that we've pushed to the end of the year because at the moment it's not really a decision that we need to think about. So yeah, the co-driver still to be decided. I've had a lot of offers as well. So
yeah, I imagine you have.
Not for me and Martyn, you haven't.
No. It's a lot of work.
Minus 30 in Antarctica. Does that not sound appealing to you? It does to me.
The 4 months away from my wife does, but I mean that's about it. But I'm sure she'd kill me for saying that.
Hey, we had a really interesting question come in here about the vehicle. So, will it be done in one vehicle, or will you have that vehicle but various versions of that?
So yeah, it's going to be done in the one vehicle. So as you guys will know, like Nick, you got from the Mongol Rally, it was literally we took a bog standard Nissan Leaf and made minor modifications to it to then travel across to Mongolia. This vehicle, the only modifications that have been made is to make it possible to drive in Antarctica and the Arctic. And I've been learning through this expedition. I'm learning so much from Arctic trucks about driving in Antarctica, because obviously it's a great idea. For me, it's a great idea. Let's go and do it. And they're like, well, here's the mechanics of it. So, for example, we need to take the vehicle, we need to modify the suspension, widen the wheel arches, and open them out to accommodate 40-inch tires. So 40-inch tires on the car, but with 15-inch alloys and running at about 3 psi at the max. So we're effectively floating on the snow. But when we get out of Antarctica, the idea then is that we will change to more road-going tires. Yes, there's still going to be big tires and they'll impact the range, but more road-going tires. And then when we go to Antarctica, we'll then switch back onto the other tires. So at the moment, that is something that's going to be positioned ahead of time for us in the Arctic, the tires, and then obviously we'll drive with them into Antarctica.
Wow, that's fascinating. So when you where will it be modified? Okay, let's ask you that.
Yeah. So like I said, Arctic trucks are based in Iceland. So the vehicle will be modified in Iceland. So when I was talking about areas where we can't get away from being able to use airplanes or boats, the car will be shipped to Iceland and then be modified there, because those guys, they're the experts. 30 years operating expeditions in these two regions, and they made the Top Gear Polar Special vehicle. Yeah. They also did the Top Gear vehicle. It drove up the side of a volcano. They've helped the heroes with their modifying their vehicles. So these guys really know what they're doing.
Yeah, and by the sounds of it, after you, they might turn a little bit EV as well. So that'll offset some expedition future mileage.
It's very much the reason why they're involved. They see this as like not necessarily the future of their business, but they see it as the future of what they need to evolve into to protect the environments they're doing expeditions in. So
let me bring up a question from Will. Let me put you on the big screen. There we go, so we can see. Don't look at us. I want to look at Chris. So let's have from Will. Are there going to be daily and weekly videos? In other words, how can we? You're going to be focused on driving, but you also want to tell a story. So how are you going to do that? In terms of you've got to do the adventure, but we want to follow you.
Yeah. So the best way to follow us at the moment and all the build up, because obviously we're not leaving till late next year. So there's going to be so much build up coming up between now and through to that point. So the best way is to jump on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and follow @PluginAdventure, and then you'll get all those updates. In terms of on the road, this is another decision that we're currently looking at, because we're looking at a documentary. The idea behind it is we will be sharing information while we're traveling, but then we're not sharing everything because we're filming a documentary. So, but it'll be follow Plugin Adventures. You'll get all updates there, and the guys that are with me in the support vehicle, traveling through South America, North America, they will be in Antarctica and the Arctic with us in the Arctic truck support vehicle. And those guys are helping with with many things. And one of the things is with the social media, because there's so many things me and the co-driver are going to be doing that, as you rightly say, Martyn, we can't be focusing on the social media aspect. But we will be putting out various videos around where we are, what we're up to, and how we got there. And hopefully not very many videos around we've crashed the vehicle here or something. So we'll see how that goes.
What do you think Extreme E has done well so far, and what could they be doing a little bit better? Because they've got a very similar mission to you, as an Extreme E want to do these fun things with vehicles, but also highlight the ecological issues that we face. And the first event had something like 16 or 18 million viewers. It was 16, 18 million. It was on free TV. Which was, really important. So it had the reach. I think, for the first one, obviously they're finding their way. How do you feel they've done so far? And in terms of, a similar mission to you in terms of raising that awareness?
Yeah, I mean, I think I initially, I'll be completely honest, as you guys, I always will, but initially I was probably like everybody else. How does racing in the most fragile environments showcase and the electric motorsport and climate change, and how do you leave it better than what you found it if you're racing around it? So I was really skeptical, if I'm being completely honest, at first. But as I got to know more and more about it, I kind of got to know that there's so much behind the racing series, and not just about them racing around those areas. So I think they could do it a little bit better, but I've seen so much around about the legacy projects they're doing in Saudi Arabia that we're in, if I remember, at the first race. So there's projects they're doing there with renewable cities and desertification, if that's the right word. I'm using the right term there. But yeah, there's so much they're doing around that and conservation, and trying to improve the areas and help raise the profile of some of the conservation projects in those regions. But I think they could do that a little bit better. I think there's a lot more around there. I think they could really use their social media reach to push that so much more. But yeah, I think they're doing great stuff. I think people should not focus too much on the race, and look at what they're doing behind the race and after the race, because they do so much work after the race has gone. So
yeah, one thing that obviously we remember for the Mongolian Rally, or at least I do, is you what's the word? Enjoyed a little bit of luxury cruising. Martyn, have we got a video of Chris's luxury cruise that he went on the Mongolian Rally?
I do. Let me see if I can play this in, and we should be able to listen as we watch it as well.
Luxury.
Well, we can't hear it, but Chris, what
hang on. Sorry, hang on a second. I've obviously pushed the wrong button. Take it away, Nick. Give me 10 seconds.
Oh well, I'll give him 10 seconds. But let's be honest, Martyn, you're the voice of radio, but the technology arms.
I make mistakes all the time. Let me try this.
This is a cargo ship, after all. And here is our ensuite bathroom. There you go.
Look at that wallpaper.
Bathroom here.
Hey, highlight of the trip.
With our cleaning facilities. A lovely shower here. So,
was that shower above the toilet there, Chris?
I was going to say, yeah, it was conveniently located right above the toilet. So the shower head I took off and took the pipe away, because every time you sat on the toilet, you basically got dripped on the head because it leaked. Obviously, as you can see, it was very well maintained facilities. But as I said at the start of that intro, it's a cargo ship after all. It's a Russian cargo ship for all the Russian truckers traveling from basically Azerbaijan up to Kazakhstan, so they cross the Caspian Sea.
So at least they wallpapered it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like they forgot to finish it, but no, the ship as well looked like it basically sunk, and they just like lifted it back up, drained it all out, and then put it back on the water. But there's a little bit of backstory, because the video, this was our honeymoon. Sorry, our anniversary. It's my wife's anniversary. So on the rally, our anniversary ended up on the day we're crossing on this ferry, and now. It was about 40-degree heat crossing on this ferry. No AC at anywhere on board the vessel. So down below was more like 50-degree heat. So everybody didn't really sleep in the rooms. They just slept on the roof of the ship. So really, it served its purpose. It was a good bed because it was one of the best beds we'd had between London and up until that point in Azerbaijan. So it served its purpose really well. But in the video, you don't quite see it there. It's at the start of the video. I'm wearing like this t-shirt, this orange and white t-shirt and green collar t-shirt. And the idea there was basically the Kazakhstan government, because we tied in with the Kazakhstan government around the Future Energy Expo and everything. And they said, look, it's the Future Energy Expo. It's a big thing. Everybody will help you and nobody will touch you and everything. If you're going, if you show you're going on the here for the Future Energy Expo. So what I did was I put the t-shirt on for leaving the ship, because we'd heard that the border crossing and the coming off and the customs was an absolute nightmare. It was going to be 3, 4, 5 hours. So I thought, right, I'll put the t-shirt on, and I'll when we get to the border security, I'll say, yeah, we're here for the Future Energy Expo. We're speaking, because we were, and everything, and they'll let us across. They'll let us through, and it all sail through because we had a government official waiting for us on the other side. No, it didn't make a blind bit of difference. It backfired completely because they then sent me over to the into an area. So that T-shirt there, they sent me over to a side area, and the guys made me empty the entire car. I emptied the entire car onto the floor. They came over with one of their sniffer dogs. Literally just looked at the car and went, "Okay, put it back in." So they all started laughing. So they basically, the guys were just taking the mick out of me, and it was funny. It was funny as well. But yeah, that T-shirt didn't backfire. I didn't wear it again until the expo.
So someone else mentioned right at the start of this interview that you're going through a lot of areas with different religion, different cultures. There might be a bit of conflict in areas you're going and visiting. But I know that, knowing you as a person, you're one of the nicest, loveliest people I know, and you are one of the very few people that went through Russia and stayed in a Russian fire station, which is government owned, and they're not big fans of the British normally, are they?
No, and we shouldn't have been. We weren't actually allowed. That's the thing, is we shared an image. The guys allowed us to share an image of us standing outside a fire station, but we had to make sure that it was in an area where nobody could tell where that fire station was, because if they had been found out, then basically they would have lost their jobs. But when we got into Russia, we were in a village and we were trying to find somewhere to charge. So in context, there was no charging infrastructure from Turkey to the finishing line in Russia. And we just going up to people, dangling a cable and going, "Can we plug in?" And these guys gave us a charge. So we're in this town, and I thought, can't find anywhere. There's not much in this town. There's a fire station. So we nipped over to the fire station. I said, "Look, you're used to saving people. Could you save me right now and give me some electricity?" And the guy went off, came back and went, "Yeah," in Russian, obviously. And then we plugged in the car, and then they just got out a big pot of soup, coffee. We just, using Google Translate, we just had a chat for hours about Russia and various things. But then they phoned ahead to every fire station along our route and just said, "Hey, they're coming here." Then they phoned the next one after here. They'll be coming to you. And then when we got to our second fire station, they were like, "Yeah, 2 guys will give up their bunk. You sleep in the fire station tonight." I was like, "This is incredible." And I got to slide, and there's no euphemisms here. I got to slide down a fireman's pole. That was a boyhood dream. I was like, went onto the second floor and just slid down the fireman's pole and had respirators on and sitting in the fire engines. And it was just amazing. And people are so kind. And I think through COVID, what we've seen is empathy and kindness and caring is out there. And my adventures, when I go on the adventures, I'm so humbled by how kind and caring people are, that it gives us the opportunity to to showcase that as much as anything else. So,
but it is going to be quite dangerous, according to this website I just found. It does look quite scary. Okay, so you need to be full on charm offensive. Then is that going to work? I mean, it works in Russia, so.
It's very much. You've got to be You've got to be kind. I mean, sorry, kind. You've got to be careful when you go into these countries, but you've also not got to go in there going, "Hey, look at us. We've got a big blingy car. We've got all this tech. Look at us. We're fantastic." You just go and meet people. Go into the small little villages, and you just put on a big smile and just. I mean, one of the things I'm so prepared to do, and I was so prepared to do on the rally, was we go up and we say to people, "Hey, look, can we get a charge?" Great. Well, here's money. If you don't want money, hey, what can I do? Can I go and help? If it's a farm, I'll go and help, and I'll clear out the muck from some cows or horses. I don't care. Anything that we can give you to show the kindness, to repay the kindness you've given us. So it's very much about being humble with people when you travel through these countries, and that's
just be careful that you don't offer to help on a farm when you go through Colombia. That might want to avoid there, Chris. We're very sorry. We're very sorry to Chris's PR manager. We promised not to tell Chris about the dangerous countries we're going through, just in case he got a little bit too scared.
He's a big boy. He'll be all right. He's all right.
It's something you've got to. I've been researching. I say 4 years. I've been researching, and I've had a route mapped and planned and understood the infrastructure that I would need to make this possible. Even before we had a charging partner on board. I've understood that for about 3.5 years now. So, and places like Colombia and Mexico has always been on the radar to initially look at that. And again, it's like everywhere. You go into these countries and there's a preconception given to you. Yes, there's dangers in Colombia through cartels, etc. So, but if you go in there and you don't go, singing and dancing and making a big song and dance, or being there, then you travel through unconspicuously. You will be fine, and be kind to people.
Yeah, I agree. I've been to some countries and some places, cities which are listed as dangerous and scary, and I've just gone there as a traveller with my backpack on, and no one pays attention to you. You're very dull and boring in main society. If you go looking for trouble, you will find it. But if you're respectful of a country and their cultures, most people just don't care.
We travelled through Russia, and the preconception there was we were going to have trouble. Russians are not very kind and caring, and that's not true at all. It's their mannerisms are maybe a little bit different to us, and we take that as being offensive or whatever. But they're not. They're so lovely, kind people, we never had any trouble at all in Russia.
One of the things that obviously, like what I was talking before, this trip is about improving the environmental impact and talking about everything. What do you think at the moment is the biggest environmental challenge we face at the moment as human beings?
Wow, you never said there was going to be hard-hitting questions on this podcast. I'm joking, Nick. No, I think there's a number of areas. There's conflict in areas. People have got, it's transport, it's agriculture, and there's various things. I would say for me, it's agriculture, and it's down to what we eat. Yes, I'm promoting zero emissions. Yes, we want people to switch to electric mobility and industrial, fleets to switch to electric mobility, but down to our simple choices of what we eat can make a massive difference, because at the end of the day, the amount of land that's taken up on this planet just to basically produce the amount of meat that we eat is just mind-boggling. Most of the planet is taken up for livestock rather than actually for the animals that already live on this planet that we cherish so much, but yet we destroy their habitats, so they're not going to be here anymore. So, in a nutshell, let's reduce our meat intake. You don't have to be vegan. Everybody complains about, I don't want to be vegan. You don't have to be vegan. Just limit the amount of meat that you eat. I very rarely eat meat now, and I don't see it as an issue in my diet at all.
That's a good point, actually, in terms of how you're going to be surviving in the really harsh bits. Obviously, you take it all with you, and it's Boy Scout food, right? So it's hot water in a packet, is it?
It's pretty much it's pretty much that, and I will say from that, we're actually looking at vegan supply of food. So, but again, it's non-plastic packaging. So even if even if a piece of packaging, for example, let's just take the worst case scenario, a piece of packaging does blow away in a wind, it's not plastic, it's biodegradable, so it will biodegrade. But at the end of the day, from that perspective, all the packaging that we use and the products that we use will be plastic free. We won't be using single-use cups, for example. We'll be using our own cups and use them for everything that we drink. So,
what's the as you head further towards the end? What's your rough route going to be? Because, like I say, it gets harder as you get towards the end. Now, we've all watched Ice Road Truckers in a bored moment on the telly. It looks pretty harsh.
Yeah.
When does it start to get really hairy again?
Yeah, Antarctica is going to be hairy, but yeah, the North Arctic is where it really, really gets sketchy. And I'm not lying when I say our life is basically at risk on a lot of steps. So we will We will go out of Edmonton in middle northern Canada.
Yeah. Okay.
And then from there, we basically go up, leave mainland onto Arctic sea ice, where we'll travel through the Arctic sea ice, do a little bit of island hopping, and then we will get to Resolute. And Resolute is where all the expeditions basically they tend to start from, but we will be driving there. And at the moment, according to our expedition guys, Arctic Trucks, we quite probably will be the first vehicle to actually drive this route to all the way up to Resolute. But about 80% of that is sea ice. And basically like ice road truckers, but no roads, no actual down, well-trodden routes. So we'll be navigating the sea ice ourselves, and it'll be mapped with Arctic Trucks, satellite mapped. So we need to navigate that and make sure that it's going to be strong enough and thick enough to support our weight as we travel through.
Wow.
Resolute, a couple of days there to basically get ourselves on board, get a few more supplies on board. And then we were pretty much, as you looking at the route there, when we leave Resolute, the island to the left there is where effectively Polar Bear Alley is, where there's where we will come across, as we just said, polar bears. But after that, it's basically it's sea ice. It's driving solely on sea ice, and that's where, again, if we're there a bit too late than what we plan, then the sun will have warmed up the sea ice, and it will start to get thinner.
Wow.
So basically, if you drive too slow from the south to the north, you will miss your chance to make it. So there really is a time rush on this.
There's no time rush in. Well, yes, in a sense, there's a time rush, but the only essence of that is if we take too much time at our stop offs. If we extend the stop offs in Santiago, Mexico, whatever, a bit too long.
Just remember, we did mention before how slow you drive on Forza. So I mean. It is possible, Chris.
If you look at this, I mean, the Mongol Rally was 10,000 miles in 56 days, and 6,500 miles of that I had no charging infrastructure in a sense of actual public charging infrastructure. So I was relying on a 2-pin plug. So when we're on this route, South America, we have charging infrastructure. North America, we have charging infrastructure. Up to Edmonton, we have charging infrastructure. So there's a very, albeit massive part of it, but a small percentage of the drive that's going to be non-charging infrastructure and relying on what we've got.
And apart from the environmental benefits and the fact that you're doing this, are you going to be conducting any science on this, any science experiments or anything like that on the trip, collecting any data?
Yeah, so there's a couple of conversations going on just now with a couple of foundations around air quality and climatology as well. So there's basically measuring the climate, monitoring the climates as we travel through in the different countries. So, and air quality, air pollution, essentially. So, but a lot of that's still to be ironed out. We're looking at doing that, but how we physically do that and integrate that into the car will then come when we've got the car in our hands.
So, last couple of sort of quick fire questions from me and Martyn. I think, what country are you looking forward, or what part of the trip are you looking most forward to and least forward to?
So I would say the whole trip, the whole thing is what I'm looking forward to most. But if I had to pick, South America is going. I mean, Antarctica, boyhood dream to be there, but South America is going to be so culturally diverse. That is just going to be absolutely amazing. When I go to the worst, what I'm not looking forward to, being completely honest, I'm not looking forward. It's not any of it. I'm looking forward to the entire thing because it's all going to have its own unique stories in it and its own unique, basically culture. So looking forward to it.
I knew you wouldn't answer that for me. You're just too much of a nice bloke just to say, "Oh, I really don't want to go to this place." Just too nice, Chris.
And in terms of how we now follow your journey from today to when you leave, what's going to be the best place to do that? Are you going to be holding kind of regular updates or kind of pre-recorded stuff or live streams where you can do Q&As like this? What are you thinking?
So best thing, like I said earlier on, is at Plug-in Adventure on all social platforms. Jump on that, and then any kind of live Q&As that we do, any kind of interviews that we do with people like this, for example, where we put out a lot of information, that will all be shared through there. So then people will get an update on what's going on. But as we get a few more months into this, we're looking at developing what that strategy is going to look like, and if it's going to be take forms of, we have maybe podcasts, or if we look at doing weekly updates through newsletters or through various different forms. So it's still very much something that we need to formalize, but the focus at the moment is get the vehicle going and get that modification going. So,
and will you be will you be looking for support from individuals in a kind of, not in a Patreon way, but in a kind of sort of an individual level of support, or are you focusing mainly on those kind of organizations that want to put money in to get their names in there, and then working with partners like charging partners, vehicle partners, nutrition partners? Are you asking for individuals to support or not?
I think at the moment, again, that's still to be developed. But I would say if we get individuals like we did with the Mongol Rally, doing kind of like a crowdfunder or something, if we do that, it won't be to give us money. It will be to go to charities or organizations that then will basically be giving them a benefit and them a support. Organizations that are doing some amazing work around climate change or sustainable lifestyles or conservation. So if we do anything that from an individual basis, it will basically to give basically donating to people, these organizations, rather than giving to us at the project, because the primarily focus is what you said, is looking at organizations that want to be involved in the project, to like companies or organizations to spacey sponsor the project. Wow.
And you're not worried that someone's going to beat you to it in that year and a half of planning? It's a crazy thing to do.
There's so much involved. I mean, like you say, 3-4 years. And that's the thing is, I kind of say to people think my life, people go, I want your life. But my life is 5% of my life is doing the adventures, is doing this cool stuff that people see. But 95% of it is all the stuff that goes into planning and research and data. It's a difficult thing to do. Is, we didn't touch, but we've seen an expedition that's gone through South America and the challenges that they faced, and say it's not an easy thing to do, and hence why it's taken me 10 years to develop and perfect just how you do these expeditions and how you do them properly.
I mean, to be fair, they're looking at your trip and thinking they kind of copped out a little bit, didn't they? I mean, they cut it a little bit short.
Charlie's a good friend. I mean, I know Charlie. I've met him a few times. I've chatted with him a few times. So, all credit to what they did. I'm not gonna.
Credit to what they did. But I mean, you basically got your microphone and just dropped it, didn't you? Oh, that little trip you did. Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit further. Has anyone done this trip in petrol or diesel or anything like that before?
Nobody's ever done this trip at all before. Nobody's ever, as far as I'm aware, nobody's ever even attempted it.
Okay, and what car are you going again?
It's not going to be a Renault Twizy.
I tried, everyone. I did try.
But you know what? A Twizy would be nice and lightweight. It would probably float as well. I don't know. I mean, it seems
that's a good idea.
Buoyant.
That's a good point, man.
Okay, so we can follow you on your socials and find out more about what you're doing, and we're looking forward to finding out as and when you can announce stuff. We knew we wanted to get you on, and we didn't want to go too early because you really couldn't say anything a few weeks ago, and then in a few months' time it'd be too late. So appreciate you coming on tonight and sharing what you could.
Yeah, thanks. Just thanks for having me on. It's always a good fun to chat, and it's always a good banner to chat with, catch up with Nick, even though he's just as slow a driver as me.
You don't have to say that. It's all right. Don't spare his feelings. He doesn't need it.
But thanks. Chris, I just want to say quickly, if I can, thanks to everybody that supported outside of Pole 12. Thanks to everybody that supported me and followed me and sent all the nice comments, even the bad comments. I don't care. I don't mind about those as well, because I learned from them. But from that perspective, just thanks to everybody that supported me throughout this 10 years, because I'm nobody without people following me and without people wanting to see what I do. So,
well, Chris, we're all looking forward to it. But I think you need to get some merch, because I think everyone would like to buy some merch. So whether it's merch to help fund the trip or go towards the charities that you're running for, I think a pole to pole merch top should be on the card somewhere.
Right. I'd wear that.
Yeah, cool. I don't know. I'm sure I don't just speak for myself. I'm sure I'll speak for Martyn here. I'm really looking forward to what you're going to be doing later on this year. Really excited.
There you go. Get the mug.
And yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on. What me and Martyn are referring to as the top 12 most influential companies and individuals in the electric car industry, and you were definitely right at the top of my list.
Brilliant.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Genuinely.
Thank you for everyone for tuning in tonight. Make sure if you aren't already, subscribe to Nick's channel, EV Nick, and mine, EV News Daily, for your daily dose of EV news. And stick around, because, like we say, once a month, we'll be doing this a little bit more often. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.